Welcome to a spiritual joint where cosmic whispers weave through the tapestry of soul and the sacred pen of Sessssssss inscribes our journey toward wholeness. Here we gather at the crossroads of mystery and light to explore the hidden realms, unlock timeless wisdom, and ignite the fire of transformation within. Together we honor the sacred dance of shadow and radiance, embracing the eternal flow of spirits unfolding. Breathe deeply, open your heart, and step into the circle where soul speaks truth and every voice is a thread in the infinite web of life. Welcome back. Thank you for clicking. Hope everyone is doing well and at peace in your world. Just wanted to talk about a couple of things today. We've got some amazing celestial things happening this week. We are starting our next cycle astrologically. We have entered into the sign of Sagittarius. This is based on true sidereal astrology, not tropical astrology. There's a big difference between those two. We'll get to that in a second. But not only do we have this new moon in Sagittarius, new moon also, we also have just entered into the season of winter. So we are going into winter. We just had the solstice. For those of you in the northern hemisphere, we had the winter solstice, so we just had the longest night of the year and the days will be getting longer. Those of you in the southern hemisphere just had the summer solstice and you just had your longest day of the year, and you will be now experiencing shorter days. So with solstice, we are looking at a time to reconnect with self, a time to go within, a time to release. This is a great time for reflection as we are, especially for those of you in areas as far as the northern hemisphere, and we're looking at snow, possibly ice, cold, dreary, gray days. For those of you in the southern hemispheres, we're looking at, we still may be getting those hot days, but we're looking at moving into getting that last harvest in and getting ready to prepare for autumn that is coming soon. So reaping the sun, getting that energy in the southern hemisphere and northern hemisphere, we are looking forward to, those of us especially in areas that experience the four seasons, looking towards warmth and longer days. So just a mention as far as the cycles go, related to seasons, related to times, related to movement, how things are moving. We are looking at, winter has just started. So we're looking at approximately 3 moons as it relates to the Gregorian calendar, 3.5 moons if you're looking at the lunar calendar. So we're looking at, these next few months are should be times of reflection and checking out what happened throughout this past year and noticing what worked, what didn't work, what we'd like to change, what we want to experience this new year. And the new year begins in what many of you may call March, when the equinox comes, which is an actual astronomical event as opposed to a random event. So this is actually when the new year begins. So, a lot of times, people, I'm sure some people are getting ready to set up their New Year's resolutions and things of that ilk. But mind you, the solstice just occurred, the 21st, 22nd, what many call December. So 2 weeks from now, in the middle of winter, how could that possibly be the beginning of the new year when we are still in the middle of winter? For those of you who are in the northern hemisphere, we're looking at, it's still cold. There is no new life per se, for the most part, as far as the abundance of life. Trees are still barren except for evergreens, and that is an inherent quality of evergreens. So the majority of trees are still barren. You might have snow or sleet or those gray temperatures, those gray season characteristics. The birds are not out chirping per se and flying around, and squirrels and deer and other wildlife are not moving around. So to say that this is the new year is just not valid or accurate. If you are really paying attention to what's going on, how could it be the new year when we just entered winter? Spring is the new year. Spring is when life is coming forth, when these new things are happening. You get a different feel. You're looking at, you have evidence. You have actual physical evidence that new life is coming. The birds, the grass, the trees, the buds on the trees, the flowers are starting to grow. All of these things are happening when new life is coming, not in the middle of winter. So you wonder why your resolutions and things aren't coming to pass if you're not in cycle with the planet and cycle with the things around you. You might experience some preliminary preliminary success, but at the end of the day, most people are not going to follow through because we're out of sync. You're in the middle of winter when you should be reflecting and pausing and regenerating, getting ready for that new life, and pushing forward with this, pushing forward with this new life, new beginnings and whatnot in the dead of winter is just a mismatch of energies. And then, you wonder why things are not flowing the way you would like them to. It's because the energy's not matched. You're not in alignment with what is actually happening. Part of this, just to speak a little bit about how this new year came to be, when Rome was running the world on a material plane. They had different Caesars, and Caesar is not a name, Caesar is a title. So all of the political uproar and the back and forth and the drama and the things that were happening in the so-called states, the democratic states, the republics, and so on, all of those things that were part of that time period, there was a vote that was supposed to have been taken, and to have the vote go in the direction of a certain group who wanted to be in control, when some of the senators were away or on vacation, they say, okay, well, let's take the vote while they're not here, because this will enable us to make sure that the vote goes in our way. So this was part of the change when they moved from the beginning of the actual year, which was in March, and moved that to what we call January, wherein they would January is named after their two-faced god, Janus. And they were saying that he had one face looking backwards towards the past and one face looking forward towards the present, and they used this as the so-called start of the new year, and this shifted the time back approximately three whole season, because spring, which is the actual new year, they moved the new year back to January. And if you pay attention to suffixes and prefixes, if you notice that there are certain months whose prefix or root, you have September, October, November, and December. If you are familiar with the roots of words, sept is 7, October is 8, November is 9, December is 10. Now, starting from March being 1, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, the 7th month. March was the original first moon of the year, because that's when spring occurred. That's when the celestial events brought in the equinox, which is equal sun and night, equal day and night, equal sun and moon. So that's why September, October, November, December, those are the names of those months. It was the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th month, and the 10th month, not the 9, 10, 11, and 12th month. But actually, looking at ancient, sacred, tribal, indigenous calendars, and followed a lunar cycle as it related to the moons that we had. So there were 13 moons, which is why sometimes we have these names. We have blue moons and I believe it's black moons. Blue moons, there's 2 full moons in a cycle of 31, 30, or 28. Well, have to be a 30 or 31 month, 31 or 30 day month. And a black moon is when there are 2 so-called new moons within that period. But if you were to follow the 13-month calendar, there would be 13. All the phases of the moons go through 13 times. The main cycles, new moon, first quarter, full moon, last quarter, goes through 13 times, and that would eliminate all of these things that we go through as far as 365 days, and then you got a quarter day, and that's based on the fact that we are functioning on a cycle in a period of time that is not in alignment with the planet. We're looking at the 1260, which they use for convenience, as opposed to the 1352, which is in alignment with the cycles, and the fact that precessions and equinoxes. If you're familiar with Mayan cosmology, you've got the 26,000 years and 52,000 years as far as the calendars that are in use contain, and the change of those cycles happens on 26,000, 52,000 because of the 13 moons. So we've got this disconnection there, which leads to why we have so much, why we have some problems in this area, because we are not in alignment with the actual cycles of the planet. And this filters over into so many areas. We've got music. There's a specific cycle, a specific frequency as far as music is concerned that has been changed to affect us in a certain way. This whole daylight saving time thing is, it throws us off. There's a certain number of hours in a day, so whether you push the hour back or push the hour forward, there's still that many hours. You're not adding anything. You're not taking away anything. You're just moving the time number back to allow you to so-called have this extra hour of daylight. This was supposedly used during the war to allow them more daylight time to do the things that they do. But at this point in time, why are we still doing this? This throws us off, because I know it does me. Some of you, if you pay attention, it throws us off. Especially like when you live in a place where there's 4 seasons. In the autumn, when the time reverts back to its original, it's a couple of days where it's strangely darker than it should be for a few days. Seems to me that trying to catch up or readjust or whatever. So it's just a lot of things that are different, a lot of things that are off, a lot of things that need to be mindful of. But back to the point, as I digress, this is a time, winter is a time for reflection. Summer is a time for, harvesting and preparing for the colder months that are to come. So we're in the northern hemisphere getting ready to, move into this new year in March. And this should be a time of reflection and letting go of those things, and especially making note of what it is that we want to see, what it is that we want to change, or what it is that we want to create in this season. We have cycles. Cycles are going on all the time. You have a cycle throughout, each hour. It's broken down into those different phases each day, each week, each month, each year, and it all goes through a whole cycle. And even though the actual cycles, times, seasons they're still in effect. If you pay attention to them, if you get in line with them, you will notice that things will move and flow more, or will flow easier, and be in a more flow state, be in a more harmonious state. Part of why the other time cycles and seasons that have been set into place and forced upon us, that they still work, is that so many people still believe that they work. So many people still have accept that they work, and with all of that energy from the other people, where energy flows, the intent energy follows intent. So if the intent is, okay, this is the new year, with so many people focused on that being the new year, that energy accumulates, and it is put out into the ethers. Whereas if enough of us were to get back to the original cycles and times and seasons, that we would be able to change the alignment so that we would be more in alignment with planets, because of how the planets move, how the constellations and how the planets move through the constellations. That's astronomical movement, celestial movement. That's real. You can see that. Just for an instance, tropical is based on symbology, whereas there is a static, fixed, what should you call it? There's a static sign, there's a fixed sign that it's always going to be. When the astrological new year for tropical astrology begins, it is always at 0 degrees Aries. But if you were to take your telescope and look up into the sky on the equinox, you will see that we would be in the constellation of Pisces, not Aries. We are in Pisces. And if you are, getting your, most people, especially at this point in time, because of the precession of equinoxes, in that for every 72 years or so, the placement moves 1 degree. At this point in time, most people who believe that their sun sign is, let's say, they believe it's Libra. If you were to check the actual sky at the time when you were actually born, you will see that the sun, if we're talking about your sun sign, and all of your signs for the most, all of your planets and placements or whatnot will most likely be moving to the sign before it. You will see that your sign is actually in Virgo. And if you check out astrology, you might get your chart read or whatever, but you see that all things don't resonate. But if you get your true sidereal astrology chart done, you will see that more things are in alignment and explain why certain things don't seem to click, certain things don't seem to connect. Because if we're looking at the actual placement, because the actual placement, the exact time that you were born, is like the map of your entrance onto this plane, the exact configuration of the planets and the stars at the time you were born. So the celestial arrangements, the constellations of stars, they have an influence on aspects of your life. And this is not to say you don't have choice. This is not to say that you are like stuck. Say you have a retrograde in Saturn, or Saturn is square your ascendant at the time of birth. It doesn't mean that you are doomed to excuse my dogs. It doesn't mean that you're doomed to the fate of having this discord between Saturn and Venus, between discipline and love, between the strict, straightforward father aspect and your aesthetic, familial aspects. That doesn't mean that this just shows you points and areas of your life where you can focus on, where you can, if the placement is unfavorable, you can work on these things to your benefit. You can figure out how to, okay, well, I have my my Mercury is in Scorpio, so my communication may be more mystical or maybe more sensual, and you can move that and change it into a way that it works for your benefit, as opposed to succumbing to the negative aspects where you are being overly sensual at times when it may not be appropriate. So it's a chart just to help you maneuver through your life. It's not the end all be all, and again, the reason why so much of it may seem like it's okay is because so much energy from so many people believing this is one way, as opposed to what the actuality of what is happening is. I'm going around in circles, I'm sorry. If you know what the actual chart is, you can see where you can make adjustments so that you can have things flowing more in alignment with, your highest self, with the universe, and with the celestial arrangements. What else did we want to talk about? Okay, so we're going into Sag. Okay, I'll talk about this tomorrow because I don't want to go too long. If anybody is reading, we do raw astrology charts where we do a combined overview of your charts and how things can affect you, how things may affect you, how you can maneuver to be more in alignment and have more harmonious activities, more harmonious journeys transpire in your life. We look at transits, and maybe if you have questions, or also if you don't want a chart, we also do readings for moon readings, seasonal readings, those type of things, energetic healing, those type of things. If you're interested, leave us a comment and we will get back to you. We'd like to thank you for being here. Thank you for time spent with us. We will close out, and may the echoes of this sacred fire linger within your soul. Carry the wisdom of the stars, the silent song of the moon, and the gentle whisper of ancient truths as your guiding light. Continue to step softly into your unfolding path, embracing the shadow and the light, knowing that every breath is a thread woven into the infinite tapestry of the spirit. Until we meet again beneath the cosmic sky, walk in wholeness, peace, and radiant grace.